Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's event organized by Prima at the Mediterranean Pavilion on the alignment and contribution of agri-food business to climate change, adaptation and mitigation strategy and green circular economy. So we will today debate the role of the private sector in this green transition, as well as exploring strategies, tools and policies to support the agri-food system in such transitions. We have a very dense agenda. We will have speakers from different contexts debating it, and it's my pleasure now to give the floor to Professor Riccaboni, Chair of the Prima Initiative, which will deliver his introductory remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni, and thanks to the speakers, the distinguished speakers who came today here for this panel. So everybody knows that the Mediterranean is a hot spot for climate change, that climate change is affecting agriculture, but also agriculture contributes to changes in the climate. So we don't need to talk about it. We need to talk about solutions, how we can contribute to more sustainable and resilient, prosperous and more just Mediterranean agri-food systems. In order to do that, definitely we need to put farmers at the center of the attention of researchers, innovators, regulators, institutions. So this is a key change that we need to make. So which are issues that we as Prima Foundation and also in terms of various actors involved in the activities of Prima Foundation we are planning to do, and we would like to take also this opportunity to valorize and to make them advance. 3 issues. The first one, clearly we need to bring the results of the research innovation projects of our laboratories, of the projects that Prima has funded so far. We have funded so far 168 projects with 1,600 research units working together with an investment of 230 million euros that will become 500 million at the end of the initiative. So we need to be sure that these projects, the more interesting of them at least, create the conditions to support our farmers, our businesses, our communities. And this is a great challenge. This is the first one. And we need definitely work on it. Secondly, we need also to be sure that our farmers, our businesses know what we call the grammar of sustainability, that they are aware that there are some sort of red lines to follow, how to implement sustainability in your activity, how to communicate it. And this is not an easy task because of the size of Euro-Mediterranean farms, Euro-Mediterranean businesses in the food sector. So we need to be sure that also when the regulation is prepared, it takes into consideration the needs and the goals of farmers. Now there is a very important debate on regulations about how to define if an agricultural product or agricultural production is sustainable or not. Well, we need to be sure that in this conversation also the voice of small, medium-sized enterprises is heard, especially, let me say, the producers from the Mediterranean. So this is a key issue, and we assure you that we are working hard in order to make it happen within our, of course, our capacities. The third issue is that we need to valorize and give visibility to good practices which are already around. We need to show that being sustainable and profitable is possible, because we need to be sure that our farmers all around the Mediterranean are profitable. I mean, farmers are not poets, they are entrepreneurs. So we need to be sure that they get the right degree of profitability, which is not easy, we understand it. But we all need to work on it. Just to conclude these very short introductory remarks, the only way to do it is to cooperate. To cooperate in a very concrete way, not just to be together and to think the box. So this is the reason why also Prima has contributed to this pavilion. This is the first year there is a MED pavilion, and Mohamed Shinawi and myself, co-chairs of Prima, we are very pleased of the success of this pavilion, and we will work hard to have next year, another time at the next COP, again, this possibility to showcase results and showcase good cases of translation of research innovation to the world of business. So we need to work together. This is the reason why here we have representatives of institutions like the European Economic Social Committee, representatives of farmers, representatives of business. So we want to put together them and institutions to be sure that we can make it. Because as we have said during many of these panels, the Mediterranean is a test bed for more sustainable and more resilient agri-food systems. So we need all together work for this goal. Thank you very much, and back to you, Giovanni.
Thank you, Angelo, for your introductory remarks and for having pointed out the reasons of this panel. And it's a good way and a great pleasure now to introduce Peter Schmidt for a keynote where he will set the scene about the issues that are on the table, as well as the risks and the main trends regarding the role of agri-food business sector, especially with a particular focus on SMEs in the alignment towards sustainability. Peter Schmidt is president at the Agriculture, Rural Development and the Environment section of the European Social Economic Committee. So he has a vast experience at the European level, and we believe we have invited him for his speech, considering that these experience at the European level can be kind of exemplary for the Mediterranean region as a whole. So, Peter, it's my pleasure to give you the floor. As you wish, you have the mic there if you, or...
Yeah, thank you very much, Giovanni. I'm going to stay here on this place. I think it's easier and leisure. And thanks, Giovanni, and thanks Prima for this initiative and inviting the ESC. Does it work? No, it doesn't really work because I have an echo. Okay, it's just here in the room. Okay, that's fine. And this initiative, I think, is a very crucial one, as you pointed out, Angelo. And I would like to introduce it first a bit to the ESC, because the ESC, since we are here in an international context, you mean it's better to go to the stage? Because here in the room, okay. I'm quite flexible. It sounds better. That's also for the other speakers. So, but let me introduce it first a bit what the ESC is about, because we are in the international sphere here, and we do not have a construction everywhere in the world as the ESC is about. The ESC is an construction, in our point of view, a very important one, because we are the organized civil society in Europe, and we represent about 90 million citizens in Europe. The ESC brings together business, trade unions, and civil society actors. And that's an important point, because we think, and that's why we are here in the COP, we want to bring civil society position into all the debates out of these policy-making processes, and bring in to the policy-making process our positions. What are our positions? Our position was already 6 years ago in Europe. We have been the first institution calling for a comprehensive food policy, for sustainable food systems. At that time, no one talked about that. We had already climate change. We didn't have this much other crisis. But now, in all the context of the crisis which we have now globally, there is more need to accelerate the process, being more sustainable. And as you said, Angelo, it is not necessary to talk about the details what we are facing. The question for us is, what is now to be done in order to really come to a sustainable food production in Europe, and especially in the Mediterranean? Because we have a huge focus in the Mediterranean on food production, especially from the small and medium enterprises. Just give you a figure. Now, what is the extent? I'm a German. I'm not from the Mediterranean. That's why I'm a bit an exot here, probably in this room. But in Germany, we have about 6,000 food processors. So in Italy, it's I guess the actual figures it's 56,000. That's a difference. That's why the focus in the Mediterranean food processing sector is such an important one. So, and the question now is what is to be done? And together with Angelo and his team, we organized in the ESC an opinion where we said how we can align the food business with the SDGs, with the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN Agenda 2030. And I like very much this expression when we talk about the grammar of sustainability. Why is it important to establish a grammar of sustainability? It is important not because all of the processors need this kind of grammar. They have it already. For instance, the big multinationals, they have their grammar for sustainability, but not the small and medium enterprises. And that's our problem. And when we produced this opinion in the ESC, we invited different actors, also business actors from the small and medium enterprises, and asked a cheesemaker in Bavaria, a small cheesemaker factory, so could you come to the ESC and tell us what is about your narrative on sustainable production? How do you align your business with the SDGs? And he looked at me and said, what you're talking about? Which kind of food you're talking about? He didn't hear until, this is 2 years ago, until that time, what is the UN Agenda 2030 and what are the SDGs? And the problem is that these companies do not have resources and the capacity to go with the same way as the big multinationals are doing it. And that's the problem, because they don't have the resources to do it. So that's why what we have to do is we have to bring them a kind of grammar book that they learn what is exactly sustainability, what's about water use, what's about energy use, what's about renewable energy production for themselves in order to come to more sustainability. And the most important point on this is that we give a focus on the social impact on sustainable production. So that means, of course, for farmers, that means, of course, for small and medium enterprises, the workers are involved in this path, in this avenue, and that starts indeed in the farmer. The farmer must know what they have to do in order to deliver a sustainable product. And I would like to pick up your point, Angelo, on one which is an important one. And we have to discuss that along the food supply chain, because it's kind of an elephant, not here in the room, but an elephant in this supply chain. It is about profitability. We have to clarify clearly, it is of course the right of farmers to have a profitable business. But we don't discuss it in a way. We say, yeah, the farmers must survive and they must have a decent income. No, ladies and gentlemen, farmers, they must have the right in the supply chain to make their money as others. But there is a problem for the farmers. But at the same time, and no, I must shorten my speech, sorry. But let me express this point, because I find this is a very important one. But we have some players in the supply chain, they make the money. They are able to make the profit, the big profit. And if we do not clarify that a sustainable production from the beginning of a supply chain until to the consumer is only possible if we have fair shares within the supply chain. And this we have to clarify, that not only a couple of big players are able to make their money, and the other one, like farmers or small and medium enterprises, are suffering. So some of them, they give the benchmark, listen, on 20% profit on a turnover, and the other one, they are suffering. And if the small one wants to extend and grow in their business, go to the bank, they don't get even now more money because the banks are telling them you do not reach the benchmark, that's why you go home, make your homework, and if you make more profit, then we're gonna give you the money. This is a ridiculous system. So it means, we already described it in a paper, aligning the food business with the SDGs. We also produced a paper on the sustainable economy we need as European Economic and Social Committee, where we say we must look into the finance system. The finance system must deliver for sustainable production, full stop. And we see now a situation which is ridiculous. When we have a look at the war situation, we see that there are disruptions now, but there are some business, only 4, big in globally, they make the big money, and these are the traders on food speculation. Okay, that's the sign. On food speculation. And if we go into this in details, then we see how vulnerable the food supply chain globally is. And is it just in few hands organizing food distribution, and they have the ability, more than the global community, having the knowledge, having the possibility to distribute it, and to go in the what's called the balance, yes, yep. And you know, when you look at these files, they made the biggest profit in the last 120 years ever. And I think it is now really the time to discuss the finance. How can we help the small and medium enterprises concretely, really with concrete actions, not only give them the book, only give them the support, the support from different funds that they are able to make the transition. And the third point is to be clear that we leave no one behind in this journey. Concrete example, and this is my last point, we propose that we establish food policy councils. We think if we're going to launch an idea that we create on the local, regional, national, in our case, European, but here I would also say on the Mediterranean level, food policy councils, where we bring all actors together, retail sector, consumers, public procurement sector, processors, farmers, workers, and they must look at the food supply chain, make it shorter, make it more resilient, and make it more sustainable. And the examples which we already have in different countries, they are very promising, because we bring all on board and we get a focus really on local production, which is then more sustainable, more seasonal, and all these aspects I can't get into this. So that's why I'm happy to listen to the debate, and thanks again for the invitation and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for having set in the scene in such a very clear manner and comprehensive, having touched several aspects related to the issue we are debating today, the issue of also a fair share within the value chain, so the all social aspects, and also this concrete proposal based on the experience you have and on the framework you have described in a very multi-stakeholder approach. And to some extent, this panel has been prepared with this aim, and it's my pleasure now to give the floor online to the Secretary General of BusinessMed, Jihen Boutiba. BusinessMed is a confederation of association in the Mediterranean, and it's a pleasure to hear from her voice what are the actions that are taking in this domain. Jihen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thanks to Prima for this invitation. So the topic of this session is quite relevant, particularly in the COP circumstances, noting that since the pandemic crisis, the Russian and Ukraine war, now more than ever, all the world understood the emergency, as said Mr. Smith, of a common response to promote a global transition by investing in nature protection and restoring and keep sustainable and more resilient countries and prevent the future emergence. So the agri-food sector, our topic of today, is the key to limit the global warming through both reduction of greenhouse gases emission and enhancement of the land carbon sink. So this must be accomplished by while sustainably producing food, fiber, and other resources for a growing population, noting that a global food demand is projected to further increase by more than 50% to feed around 10 billion people in the 2050. So all actors of the agri-food sector need to transform their production method more quickly and make the best use of nature-based technological, digital, and space-based solution to deliver better climate and environmental results. This solution requires the mobilization of capacities and resources, as well as the engagement of all stakeholders to allow the green transition of the agri-food SMEs and business sector, particularly in the South neighborhood countries from the Euro-Mediterranean region that will have to follow the EU Green Deal Alliance for better trade policy, international standards, and to boost international cooperation in the coming future to adapt to climate change. To be more practical, these are some recommendations from our perspective as a representative of the private sector in the Euro-Mediterranean region. At the policy level, of course, there is an urgent need to enhance the partnership of the agriculture and food sector in the Mediterranean based on a clear contribution of the private sector in policy and institutional change through policy dialogue. And here our role as Euro-Mediterranean social partners is important. This process will explore with synergy between stakeholders, and we can see all the consultation with the Union for the Mediterranean Ministerial Conference with multi-stakeholder approach where business may participate also in the Euromed Social Economic and Council presented by President Smith. By the way, next year, the Euromed Social Economic Council will also be held in Egypt in Alexandria Bibliothèque. At the innovation and science capacity level, the private sector plays a crucial role to support the innovation capacities of small local producers by investing in infrastructure, research, and innovation, particularly with several regional projects and funds, as well as working hand in hand with universities, raising awareness through promotional campaigns. For example, in the framework of investment project, which is co-financed by the European Commission and in close cooperation with the Italian University LUMSA, we have succeeded in concocting a program of sustainable initiative, including the agri-food sector. The program consists of mentoring session and training activity in the aim to structure their business plan and help them in fundraising also. And I come back here also to what Mr. Smith said. So we do work on social awareness to our regional business support organization and SMEs on the SDGs and the importance of the future profitability of their SMEs if they work on CSR and on the SDGs establishment. Also, by developing knowledge and skills as a key enabling all actors in the food system to become sustainable. In the same scale, as per our program, we provide technical and financial support to sustainable MSMEs active in the agro-food sector. And 2 weeks ago, we were in Lebanon and we have granted 38 startups guarantees, and most of them were on the agro-food sectors. And the most important from our side is South neighborhood countries were benefiting from these sub-grants. From the digital perspective, digitizing the sector to increase agricultural production and address climate risk has proven also its relevant, boosting the value chain in terms of productivity, traceability, quality of market access. So within our organization, we have developed a business country desk platform, which is a digital business-to-business platform, and particularly with several sectors, and one of them insisting on the agro-food. And we can see that most of the Euro-Mediterranean Mediterranean SMEs have resisted are coming from the agriculture and food industries. So the investment also in renewable energy, such as wind, solar, through public-private partnership, which is quite important, as well for infrastructure, roads, highway, which can be improved to connect rural and agricultural production areas to market, will be increasing also the regional volume of import and export. So as BusinessMed, since 20 years, we are operating in a region as a major role with business support organization and also as a social partner. And I insist on this two hats because this is, we cannot move from to business without going from policies also. So we have shared know-how internationally, worked on this best practices, conduct international activity, gathered with multi-stakeholder approach, of course, all the time in order to work on all the SDGs to boost our resilience and prevent the emergence and spread of future disease with the government, trade unions, civil society, university, local authorities, municipality, and so on. We collaborate in various projects with different partners from different countries in the Euromed region, and we have managed to implement different projects that aims to facilitate innovation to SMEs. And this coming year, more than ever, we work on the agri-food sector. As for example, also we have signed a joint Mediterranean Innovation Partnership with CIHAM, which has the mission of strengthening the Mediterranean entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem through knowledge and sharing transfer, capacity building, and cooperation. So in line with the European Commission communication, Farm to Fork strategy for a fair, healthy, environmentally friendly food system, the destiny of the triangulation continent, Europe, Africa, and Mediterranean is linked as a natural space alliance. Therefore, we must join forces to defend mutual interest and commit ourselves to better cooperation with a common response and action. And we need to walk the talk, not only with policy debates, we need action in the ground in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Thank you.
Thank you, Jihan, for your very effective speech and comment, having touched several issues from the need of investments, infrastructure, involvement of civil societies, as well as the need to capacity building issues and activity on which BusinessMed is involved. We will come back to you and to the other speakers for other short key takeaway message. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Irene de Tovar, who is a policy officer on environment and climate change at the Copa-Cogeca, and so also at WFO representative here. So Irene, the floor is yours.
Grazie, Giovanni. Does this work? Yeah. Well, thank you so much to the Mediterranean Pavilion for having me here. I work for Copa-Cogeca, so that's the EU Farmers and Cooperatives Association. I just wanted to perhaps start by keeping up a line from our last intervention. She said we need to join forces. That is true. Action is needed to address this global plight. And we have a global crisis. We have a climate crisis, but we also have a food security one. And it is crucial that we coordinate a multilateral action on this. And we need all social actors to be involved. We need all countries to be involved. And we need not only farmers, but also consumers, and we need retailers, and we need the government as well to ensure that the policies that we have and the legislation that we have is accurate and is appropriate and is actually helping to move towards this more sustainable path that we all want. And on that note, perhaps I'm going to pick up on something that Angelo mentioned at the beginning of his intervention. You mentioned sustainability versus profitability, so to speak, because you said we need to ensure that farmers are profitable while they are being sustainable. And here is my answer back to you. There cannot be sustainability without profitability. We need to understand that sustainability is a three-pillar concept. You need the economic, you need the environmental, and you need the social one. I come from Spain. From Catalonia, actually. I know firsthand what's happening in the Mediterranean region, not only from my experience at COPA, but also from my family who is still farming. And I can tell you that climate change is obviously affecting them, and they are trying their best, and all of the EU is trying to implement those practices. But what we see is that we've got a crisis, we've got a raise in the prices of inputs that is putting a lot of a strain on the farmers, and they are trying their best to implement these new techniques, but some of them are actually quite costly. And this is something that you mentioned as well, Peter, if I'm not mistaken, how to make sure that we have that innovation brought from the lab to the farm. And this is a big gap, and we need to make sure that we minimize that gap. And this can be done as well through policy. This is where our governments need to make sure that that is happening. We've heard a lot here at COP about carbon farming, and carbon farming has been seen quite as a part of the solution, and a big one. We've got, at least from our side, we've got high hopes on this. We see that with a market approach to carbon removals, with this voluntary promoting farmers to get involved in these more regenerative practices, we can deliver on those environmental goals while ensuring that there is additional income to ensure that our farmers can actually move forwards to that system without having to either get into big loans or like jeopardize their profitability. Other practices can also be like innovating on breeding techniques, on feeding mixes, and making sure that this innovation that is happening right now, and we see some countries that are doing very well, actually gets to the farmers. And you mentioned, Peter, grammar, and how sometimes you may talk to farmers and they may say, what are you talking about? This is because we're using very fancy words. And sometimes these words don't mean exactly the same on the farm, but I can assure you, we've been in enough farms, and maybe some of the farmers will be like, what is this circular economy? Am I doing it? Am I not? But they're actually doing it. When you tell them, well, what do you do with your manure? And they say, well, actually, we sell it to a neighbor, and that neighbor implements it on the crop production. It's like, well, that is circular economy there. We've got farms for instance, in Catalonia, we've got the Cámara Arrocera, which is for rice production, doing plastic out of their rice byproduct. And this is circular economy. So all farmers are doing it. They want to do more. Sometimes the political debate may be a little bit too high level, but certainly the techniques that are there and the will to move forward is there. So I think maybe the last thing that I need to mention is you talk about sustainable reporting. And there has been a lot of debate about whether to produce reports on your sustainability process and how to make sure that that is taken into account from financial purposes. And one very quick and simple message is that we need to make sure that we don't get lost in administrative burdens. We already have a lot of work on the farms, daily work, permits as well. So the more complex that our administrative systems are, the more people that we need to take care of that. And sometimes that actually involves external consulting. And this is costly as well. So we need to make sure that we allow our farmers to, yes, access that, but it doesn't become too burdensome that it sort of disincentivizes them to actually get involved. That's me.
Thank you, Irene, for your comments and your remarks. Now, considering also the speech that we have just heard, it's my pleasure to introduce online Khaled El Sadani, who is coordinator of agro-food industry alliances with 22 partners. He's also a senior expert at the NECBC Med. And I wanted to introduce now, because Irene James mentioned also the idea, kind of echoing the word of Peter on scale up, on supporting farmers, on supporting spin-off and innovation. And the alliance that Khaled is coordinating is precisely focusing on how to support spin-off innovation ideas, scale-up process and mechanisms. So Khaled, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry for my voice because I have very bad flu. But today I represent ENI CPC Med program. So I will, first of all, I would like to thank Prima for this opportunity to participate on this prestige event. I will share my screen with only, I will respect the 5 minutes schedule. So let me to share my screen, if you allow me. You see my screen? You can see my screen?
Now,
Hello, you can see my screen?
Now, yes.
Okay, perfect. So today I will focus on the good practice from the Mediterranean, on the good practice, some example from ENI CPC Med program. And as Angelo said this morning, we need to bring the solution. So I will focus on this perspective, the good practice, the solution. And I will start with some example of agri-food business and the climate change adaptation. And I will start with agroforestry. Agroforestry combination of trees, shrubs, cultivations, and the grazing animal. And this practice increase the complexity of the ecosystem and therefore the resilience against climate change and other biotic stress. So we have two examples of this agroforestry. The multifunctional olive system and the greens woodland. These photos from Jordan, and this transfer from the lab to field. So they start on the lab and then they transfer the knowledge to the farm in Jordan. And this is concerning about cover crops, field trials. So the results of this field trial indicating that planting broad beans as a cover crop between olive trees improve soil fertility and increase olive tree yield, which the farmer need to increase the yield of the trees and also the soil fertility. Another cross-border cooperation, which also technology transfer and the knowledge transfer from the north to the south shore of the Mediterranean. This cooperation between Jordan, also the National Research Center in Jordan, and the Sardinia region in Italy. And this cooperation is to fund grants to sub-grantees, SMEs, and startup to propagation, planting of rare forest trees, and implementing method to protect the forest, restoration of the ecosystem and the plantings, fertile species for grazing. So this for private farm, and this is one of the private farm in Jordan which received the fund to improve the ecosystem of forest on this farm and the olive trees, to introduce innovative techniques through some SMEs which also receive the fund to create solution to improve irrigation of this farm, conservation of soil fertility and vegetable intercropping and compost of farm waste and raising check and bugs. This is the complexity of the ecosystem in this farm. And then also from south of Lebanon, this project also funded by in the ICPC meant to enhance the biodiversity of olive trees and also to reduction of erosion of the soil and increase the soil fertility. And this is from Sardinia, from Italy, and it's a concern about improving the grazing management through virtual fencing and adopting grazing management in Italy, which is in line with the climate change mitigation, and the appropriate stocking grade and land use are of very important for protecting, enhancing the resilience of graze woodland. Another story, it's a best-made grape, and this project cooperation between Lebanon, Jordan, Italy, and this to promote the technology transfer and increase business opportunity in the Mediterranean area based on the research results on the how to use the grape waste to produce bioactive compound. And these photos from Lebanon, from France, from Tunisia, from Italy, from Jordan, and here all of these researchers, they get funded to produce pharmaceutical and nutraceutical compound from waste grape on the Mediterranean area, on Jordan, Italy, Tunisia, France, Lebanon. And I will move very fast to agribusiness and the green economy. I know that you are familiar with this photo, and only 10% of the waste collected in the Mediterranean is recycled. So this is one also of the initiative, the project Smart Bin, the Smart Bin, the Smart Garbage Bin in this photo in Italy, in Prato, which included distance measuring sensor that check their condition full or not, and the wireless network is reporting to central information system its location. So this guarantee low power operation and high energy. This the photo of the smart bin garbage, and this is one of SMEs run by a woman. It's reusing collected shopping plastic bags in a smart bin to produce wallet bags and folder in Jordan. Another story from Jordan, also in collaboration with Greece. A startup is reusing the collected paper and books in the smart garbage bin to produce different types of souvenir. And also another example from SMEs managed by local women are gathering old olive bags from the neighborhood farm and recycle them into new products and souvenir. And this is requested in the Jordanian market, and this also in collaboration with Greece. And this is some of products which use the natural resources in Italy, using the waste from agricultural waste from the farmer to produce different products. And this is the smart bike in Athens. And the smart bike, it's a function to collect the waste for reuse, informing web-based central information system about its location and the condition. And then the smart bike include identification tag and application software. It could be running on the mobile. So SMEs, by the way, SMEs who create this bike to collect the waste for reusing. I will move to the agribusiness and the green energy, and I have only 3 examples, and I will finish my presentation. The wastewater treatment pilot in Lebanon, and this is created by SMEs who receive funds to create this wastewater plant. This plant will treat 20 cubic meter per day. The treated water will be used for irrigation, non-edible irrigation, and also this water treatment plant connected with a photovoltaic system to feed the treatment plant. The potential of solar electricity production from this station estimated to be 45 megawatt hour per year, therefore to avoid 45 tons of CO2 emission per year. This is another example in Jordan, cooling system station using thermal solar panel. It's a collaboration between Jordan and Greece. So we have 2 SMEs from Jordan and Greece. They create this cooling system station using the thermal solar panel. And the results of this unit, the cooling covered by solar energy, is about 50% of the demand. Annual avoid CO2 emission, it's about 18 tons. Finally, the key message for this panel today, bring the research solution to the field. It's time to move from laboratory to field to community to industry. Innovation is the engine for climate change adaptation and the green economy. Sustainability is a common, it's a joint work, and the cross-border cooperation is the main pillar for climate change adaptation and the green circular economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Khaled, for your very informative presentation with concrete cases, details on a variety of fields, which are all very relevant and very interconnected, one to the other. Now I would like to pass the floor to Sergio Ponza from Beta Tech Center, which is a leading center on sustainable development and sustainable agri-food system. He is joining online. Sergio, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Giovanni. So good morning to everyone. It's a big pleasure, it's a big honor to be part of this panel. So thanks to Prima Program for the kind invitation, and I'm so sorry for not being able to be there with you today. So it is clear that agri-food production contributes to climate change. So in turns, it suffers directly from its consequences. So considering this, I think that it's clear that there's only one solution. There's only one way to be followed, and is that agri-food systems, agri-food production systems must be sustainable, social, economically, and environmental, of course, and contribute to climate change mitigation and, of course, adaptation, or they will no longer exist. So they will not be. They are sustainable or they will not exist. So I think that then it's time to turn the tables. It's time to move from a negative and pessimistic situation to a more positive and optimistic scenario that is full or can be full of different opportunities, such as the production of new and better food products, but not only food products. We can only think about the production of new bio-based materials, the creation of new value chains, new business models, and new services. And this will for sure have a positive and definitive impact in our societies, but specifically in that rural regions or rural territories that we are tackling, among others. So in this new scenario, small and medium producers, companies, and farmers, they will have, and they already have, a central role. So and in this sense, I would like just to make, or to give some examples, or some suggestions that can help us to facilitate, to advance towards this positive scenario. The first one is that the promotion of responsible production and consumption to mitigate carbon emissions. And to do this, so a robust and reliable sustainability assessment and a reliable and trustful eco-labeling of food products could be considered as a good strategy to communicate sustainability. Then the market demand, the consumer demand of sustainable products could become a good driver to promote sustainable food production. And here in this context, small and medium producers will have a key role, right? But we need, of course, to support them, and especially because they need special support compared to big companies. The second one is to link climate mitigation actions with potential sources of revenues in the agri-food systems. And this concept has been already mentioned by my colleague Irene. So the term of carbon farming is well known. Carbon farming related to carbon credits and carbon trading. It can be a very good opportunity, but still there are some challenges that need to be tackled. And in my opinion, for example, the development of a fair and reliable and trust market of carbon credits or trade of carbon credits that is ensuring that the farmers that are implementing these practices are receiving the real revenues and the real incentives to keep and to be profitable is necessary. And on the other side, and the other challenge is how to account precisely and reliably the amount of carbon that is being stored or is being sequestered, right? And also another challenge, another issue that has been already mentioned again by Irene is the implementation of circular economy business models in the agri-food sector, where a part of food, we can produce other kind of bio-based materials such as bio-based fertilizers, biopesticides, or bioplastics, or biomaterials that can be the keystone, the primary stone for just developing new business models and new value chains. And finally, the last suggestion that I would like to make is related to the successful implementation of actions, strategic plans, or strategic agendas that can produce real changes in the agri-food production system. So to do that, and of course, this is my opinion, so whenever an action plan or a strategic agenda is being defined, we should add an additional helix to the quintuple helix approach that is probably well known by many of you. So a part of the academia, the governments, the private sector, civil society, and the environment, we should also add the sixth helix that is the territories itself. So international, national, and even regional plans or strategic agendas are rarely able to have their feet on the ground. I mean, they are not considering the real ecosystem of factors that already exist in that territory, the synergies that exist among these actors, the common interests that they have, the conflict of interest that they have as well, the capacities that are existing in that territory, or the objectives or the environment of this specific territory. So it's very difficult to involve people and actors that are standing on the ground, so that are able to really implement tangible actions in territories. So it's very difficult to engage them in the implementation of strategic plans if we have not considered them before in the definition of this plan. So and this approach is especially considered in a Prima transition, in a Prima project that is called Transition, that we have the pleasure to coordinate, in which different agricultural and farming practices that are resilient to climate change are being developed, gathered, implemented, and transferred among different Mediterranean territories but considering this six-tuple helix approach. So considering the voice and the opinions and the needs of all kinds of actors, but also targeting the specific needs of the territories. So that means that whatever the solution is being proposed, it should be adaptive and should be like targeting that real needs of the territories. So thank you very much. It's all from my side now.
Thank you, Sergio, for your having underscored this fifth dimension of the territorial element and involvement of grassroots communities and actors. I would like to apologize for not being able to fully involve Escame, and we will display the video message that has sent in our website. Escame, of course, is a relevant actor in the Mediterranean region, convening and all the chambers, the commercial chambers of our area. I would like to pass the floor for final comments and takeaway message to the on-site speakers, Peter and Irene, for a quick reaction to what we have heard. So, Peter, if you can, please.
It doesn't work. It has to do with me, I guess. I'm sure. No? So whenever a trade unionist like me is taking a micro, there is a huge risk. The one is the micro will be damaged. The other risk is that I never stop speaking. But that's the bigger risk, I guess, than for the others. But let me thank the speakers and for the concrete points which you have bringing in. And that brings me to the point to pick up again the grammar for sustainability. Because I think, and this we have to bear in mind, even Miren, that farmers are doing already the issues and the necessary things. And business is doing already things. And it's not, we are not here to see and to defend that what we are doing. What we have to understand is that we have to adjust and to change some behaviors which we did probably over the last decades. And it's not to blame. It's just to bring the people into a new transition period and business and farmers on this together. But why is it so important having this grammar for sustainability? As I already said, the big one, they have it. And this will be the competitive advantage in the future, having a clear picture and narrative what is sustainability about. And all business sectors, all actors in the food supply chain, not having a narrative, not having a clear proof, I produce in a sustainable way, they will disappear from the market in the future. And that's why it is so important that we bring all that, what is already done, but also really translate this sustainability grammar into reality is the important point. And that's why I'm really insisting it, not sitting in rooms where we are now saying, yeah, we're doing it, we are doing already. No, identifying what is necessary to do and then start doing it. We do not have an alternative to do it. So that's why let's do it together, as I said, through policy councils in white municipalities. And there are so many examples already existing, so to be sustainable, to be circular, etc. But thanks a lot again.
Irene, if you can have a last comment, and then we pass the floor to Mohamed El Shinawi for his concluding remarks.
Thank you, thank you. Mine works, so maybe it's a problem with your microphone, but I will pass it on later on if you want to add something. I agree, we must work together. We need to break those silos at all levels. We need to break them at society, you know, at policy level as well, so that's very important. And something that you just mentioned is that we also need to close that gap between consumers and farmers. We need to introduce to the people the wall behind the supermarket shelves. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. So it's my pleasure to invite Mohamed El Shinawi, who is co-chair of the Prima initiative, to the floor for his concluding remarks of this very rich debate. Thank you, Mohamed.
I will not take that.
Thank you so much for our panelists, and thank you for our audience. And I would like to thank this very rich discussion, because it was very crucial, because this is one of the things we are always discussing in Prima. Yes, we are doing a lot of research, but it's time to move to action. It's time to move to business. It's time to move from the lab to the field. Translational research is very crucial now. So let me summarize what our panelists today were discussing and give a last point. I think it was very clear from Angelo that we need to put farmers in the middle of our action. Yes, we as scientists or some organizations, we have a lot of agenda and strategy, but it's time to put the farmers in everything we are doing. And we need to have results that support our communities. And we need to understand sustainability. You are right, Peter. You are truly right. It's not just a word. Yes, we are saying it a lot, but we have to see it on action. And at the same time, regulations and legislations are very important in this instant. And as Peter mentioned, to bring all players to the same table. This is very important. We cannot talk to each other. Scientists sitting in the same place and businessmen in another way. No, we have to sit together in the same place and discuss and see the real challenges that we are facing. And by the end of the day, there must be a profitable business, because to be sustainable. So this is very important. That's why food policy consequences is to get all actors together. Also, I would like to thank BusinessMed for mentioning the digital transformation. We cannot walk alone and think with all what's happening in the digital transformation and the green transition that's happening. This is very important. And again, stressing on the private sector role is very important, and how they should be involved in the policy making and innovation. One more important thing is the link between the South and the North Mediterranean countries, training and capacity development. Training and capacity development, and I'll mention it again, training and capacity development. This is very crucial, and this is one of the areas that we have to stress on between the two shores of the Mediterranean. And I think this was very clear from WFO and the multilateral action that's crucially needed, and the gap that you're trying to fill. This was very important. I'm going to my very dear friend in Italy, Khalid Al-Saadani. I just met a few days ago. Khalid, it's a pleasure to see you again. But I think what Khalid showed was very crucial. This is real on action. So we can work and cooperate together, and we see the action on ground. And Sergio was very clear about defining the market need and link the climate change with the practices on the ground to know our challenges. I could conclude, but that I could say Prima is a very successful example for all what we are saying. We are funding research, we are linking the research to the market. At the same time, we are defining our challenges. We are bringing the policymakers together. So I think such networking, such entity is very crucial to be sustainable in our region, to see a real change. Again, thank you so much for all our panelists. And we are Swiss time, not Mediterranean time. It's 11, yes. Thank you so much. We never end at 11, but we ended at 11. Even if we had a person from the north. Yes.